Mark in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening to you over on the East Coast. It's welcome to Brick Something News. I'm Brick Something, and today I'm bringing on a fellow punk, a person who sort of says, I am punk rock, and embodies that, because we both share that in our background. So to my, I guess visually to my left, we've got a Punk with Toys, Lawrence from Punk with Toys. Thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Thank you for having me on. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I hope so. It was fun. I mean, just so you know, we were talking a little bit before this, but it was real short. So as folks might have seen from my community tab, I've had to tear down the studio. I sort of shared pictures of what's going on here because somebody's going to sleep in here again tonight. So unfortunately, I didn't get as much time that I like to have with our co-host before to kind of check in and talk. So I'll just say that this is the beginning of a conversation, right, Lawrence? We're going to get together again over on your channel in a couple months.
Yeah, in December.
Yep.
I want to say, was it December 7th?
Yes, Thursday, December 7th, which is, why don't you give folks a sense, and then we'll circle back around to the end to talk a little bit more about your channel. But what do you got going on those Thursday nights? It's kind of a different, unique thing you're doing.
So quickly, so I have, it's every other Thursday. So one Thursday, myself and my moderator, Matthew Matson, we talk an old movie. So like this week, we'll be talking Evil Dead 2. And that's over on Punks on Film. I also stream it over on my channel. But what we do is I call it Thursday with a Friend. And it's people that are in my community that have helped me, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. For me, I've always wondered, like, all these people that I see in the chat, Nolan, Ray Paz, Carol, J Mac, like, what is their story?
Yeah. Because
you get to know them, and everyone wants to talk to, big creators or people in the industry. And I was like, I want to talk to people that are showing me love and supported me, but I also want to get to know them. Mm-hmm. And it seems like a lot of people kind of feel the same way. So I've absolutely enjoyed it. It's so much fun. And in all honesty, there's no work to it. I already know what I'm going to ask. And you let the best interviews are conversations. And you have certain questions that you're going to ask, but you let the guest take over and see where they're going to lead you. And if you watch some of them, they've gotten pretty serious at times and they've been comical at times. But that's what I love. Like, again, you see all these people and you're like, what is their story? Especially the people that you never see on screen. Though that's the big one. Like, you never see these people. I want to know what your face looks like. I want to know who I'm talking to.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's like we all went through this period recently in the last couple of years where we were all stuck at home. And then we were on screens for a lot of us for work. And then I found myself suddenly doing like a YouTube channel doing this. And then now we're in this phase of like, oh, now I just see names again. Like, you're right. I want to see these folks. So, and it's funny that you say it's no work because of what you and I were just talking about. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
But you're right. It's different work from what you normally do with like putting together slides and going through the news, 100%.
And then did you forget something? Again, like at first it was like have all these questions, but now I know what I'm going to ask. And again, you just kind of let, let the guest.
Let it flow.
Yeah, because that's what it's all about. Just getting to know them, and you're not trying to break them down. I have a feeling Payne is probably the same way with this Friday show now. I mean, he has specific questions he's going to ask. But like my Monday show, I'm sure this show, having slides, having notes, specific things you want to say to the audience that, that's tuned in. Maybe someone's made you mad and you want to address it.
That's a perfect segue, because I will tell you folks right now, again, a little bit discombobulated. Why did I go for that word of all things? But so the prep is there, and then it's not. So we'll just sort of flow, because we're doing this DIY style today. We're doing this punk rock style, which again is going to kind of be our frame. So first off, yeah, let's talk about those faceless folks in the chat. We got JMax77 up here. Yeah, we'll definitely do some toy talk, and I'll give you a heads up. We'll get there, but because we've got a punk with toys today, and I'm super excited just to talk with another punk, and maybe with some sort of cultural touchstones, because I actually think it has a lot to do with this whole toy world and sort of what we're seeing right now, and the fact that many of us are done our DIY. We were saying earlier, TV stations and TV shows. That I think that the punk thing really actually.
There's a lot more punks I'm finding in the toy community.
Yep.
Than I thought there would be.
Absolutely. We got Thanos up in here. We got Star. What's going on, folks? Good to see. Like, perfect example, and we'll get to this. Yeah, I mean, like, Thanos is doing his thing. Like everybody else, he's got to get a paycheck, and then kind of goes home and does his art. And like, that's pretty damn punk in my book. Nolan, who we got to see last night for the first time. You know, we're talking about wanting to, you were saying, get people on your channel so you can see them face to face. It was so nice to see.
I forgot Nolan was going to be on, and I passed out early. I'm like, I'm not going to look at Oz's thing. Sorry, Oz. But I'm like, I need to sleep tonight because I'm going out with Alice, and then I'm going, Brick, and I have other things I have to do.
I hear you. Like, you'll get sucked in real quick, and then, of course, it just sort of goes.
And I woke up and it's all like, no, I'm like, oh,
yeah. What's up, Ray? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's see who else we got. Yeah. Carol, good to see you. Yeah, Carol was up late sitting with us all on the chat. Like, I swear, man, I was going to be like, I'm going to go to sleep. Didn't happen. I was listening in. Folks keep trickling in, like, every now and then. Skyfall, good to see you. Speaking of, here's Oz, fresh from his, like, I don't know what that was. He did Allegiance class, and then he kind of said, okay, we're done with Allegiance class. Now let's go for 4 more hours.
8.5 hours.
They broke the record yesterday.
I am a lightweight.
Oh, and I'm 100%. Highly articulated, Adam. Can't wait for the next AWOC talk. Neither can I, but it's in the works. It's we're trying to figure out when to launch it. It'll probably be tomorrow, because our Sundays are weirdly full with his show and then mine. And so, yeah, the new episode of AWOC Talk, which is an interview with the artist behind the comic book and a lot of the packaging stuff, Utama, out from Indonesia. That'll be dropping tomorrow is the plan. And yeah, we got Black Phoenix. Good to see you. And let's go ahead and get into the quote unquote news, because for folks who've been watching this before, they know that the Brick Something News, the acronym's up there, man. Needless ephemera we saw. It's like, it's just BS, man, because it's BS news. It's like, hey, I want to bring people on and let's geek out about whatever it is that caught our eye this week. Sometimes it's actual toy news. Sometimes it's just like this geeky thing that we want to talk about. So, yeah.
Your name right there, that is a Bad Religion song if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I will tell you right now, that was me, man. I learned a lot of vocabulary from I would say Marvel Comics and Bad Religion specifically. All right. So let's see. Yeah, totally madman. All right. So we'll get into it. But again, today is a little bit different because I've got you on, and I selfishly want to talk a little bit about non-toy stuff, the punk culture stuff, because I will tie it in to toys, I swear. So if you're sitting here, folks, and you're like, man, when are they going to talk about toy stuff? I want to know about the latest Hasbro drama. Then I would just say sit tight. And then, actually, we won't get into Hasbro drama, but sit tight and we'll get to actual. I don't know. There's always Hasbro drama, man. It's like that's a very punk thing in and of itself too. There's scene drama. Okay, so let me go ahead and shift some things around before we get to this. Oh, actually, see, crackerjack operation here. Just a reminder that so you'll see that URL at the bottom. You know, I do put together the list of sort of links, and I got Thanos, who's in the chat, dropping the links as we go through. So that's helpful, 100%, especially when I'm not totally ready. But the first couple links you'll see if you go to this URL right now are there with the music stuff. But then I'll fill those in probably tomorrow if you want to go back, especially for those of you on the replay, because I love to like send people to actually to the info, you know, subscribe to these folks, follow these folks, these social media accounts. Yeah. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Less talk, more rock. So let's start off with what was sort of seen. And as I already kind of told you, I'm going to start with something a little bit more musical. You and I do ToyTube, quote unquote. But I did want to like just share that my YouTube interests go beyond toys. And so there have been a couple of channels that I want to share today that actually have been helpful for me to kind of go back and get my punk rock nostalgia fix, but also to like share with people. There have been 2 instances in the last couple of years where someone's like, hey man, can you explain punk rock to me? Right. And so there have been 2 channels and videos that I've sent them to. One of them is called the Punk Rock MBA by Finn McKenty. Are you at all familiar with this?
No, not at all.
Cool. Well, yeah, he seems to be of sort of like a similar age to mine, based on the sort of the things that he talks about and the historical touch points. And I got to give it up to him. He does his research and or absolutely seems like he was involved in sort of his local scene at the time. And so it's a cool channel.
I just did Newfound Glory, and I'm like,
you're right. You're absolutely right. And, so here's the thing about punks, for those of you maybe who aren't familiar, sometimes we can get a little like, oh, that's not real, or oh, the older stuff's better, or that's not real punk. So there's my first parallel. Does that happen with toys? Absolutely, right? Oh man, the vintage stuff is better, right? But if you go with it, I will tell you, yeah, I mean, I think Finn, just like us, is subject to the algorithm, right? And sort of there are things that work and they don't work. So I think there's a little bit of that going on, but I will tell you, there's some really cool substance there. And, you know, just like I got into, you know, the whole ToyTube thing, like trying to go to check out these videos that are like talking about my favorite Toyland, my obscure cartoon, whatever. I realized quickly, oh yeah, there's folks doing it too for like music and the stuff I like. And you can see, yeah, on the one hand, you've got Newfound Glory. On the other hand, you've got him talking about Botch. You've got him talking about, you know, there's some stuff there. And I know like this is probably.
Listen, I'm looking at Nolan's pop punk isn't punk. Haha. Yes, you are so damn right.
I hear you. I hear all of this, but I like the channel and there's some great stuff. And if I could just quickly recommend this one in particular, I share this all the time because like punk, like anything else, right? It gets sliced up and you're like, wait, what exactly are you talking about? And I'll sort of get to its essence. But at the end of the day, it did mainly manifest as sort of music. And then music evolves, gets chopped up, especially in different like localities, right? Detroit had a different sound and a different vibe because of what Detroit was compared to say Orange County or New York City or Los Angeles or San Francisco. And so as a result, we get these things. And then as things get bigger, right? Newfound Glory, people start emulating certain things that they like. And, you know, yeah. And then we all know major labels get involved. Punk changes from maybe a movement or an idea or an ethic to a sound, right? Or sounds. So at the end of the day, I know this, but I will tell you, if you're curious, this is the toy equivalent of having someone explain to you what the difference between a ball joint articulation or, you know, what 5-POA means versus mint on card, right? I mean,
it is awesome.
So we can get geeky about all sorts of things. So there's this first one that'll get you started. And then there's 2 in particular. There's the hardcore starter kit again.
I saw Gorilla Biscuits.
Yeah. So there's some stuff in there, right? Yeah. GB was like Gorilla Biscuits was definitely something that I searched out as a high schooler that was getting into this stuff. And he, he makes fun of it, but he tries to be real respectful too. He's like not really trying to be gatekeeper. He's like, hey, I want to document this. I want to talk about it. I think he's an academic
No, that's
too.
cool.
So, and then there's this like the emo thing. So I don't know. I just try and think of like what I think he kind of goes about it, and he's like, what if people heard about punk, or what's quote unquote popular, or their touchstones? And so he'll start from like a something that you recognize, and then go back and sort of show you this, like right here you've got like Paramore, right? And I'm like, okay, and I get it, I respect it, but like he'll get into Antioch Arrow, he'll get into all sorts of like early stuff, Rites of Spring, whatever. So just quickly, there's that, and of course there's the New York hardcore thing, which is, again, this is the intro. I know, like, I get it, Lawrence, I get it. You're kind of like, what's this? But I'll just throw that out there. And this, yeah, I get it on the bottom, like, yeah, Newfound Glory. But I've been impressed by the research, and it could always be more complete. But you get like Toy Connections, right? Who does those like 1982? What was happening in G.I. Joe? It's like that, but for punk stuff. So
a lot of what you're saying is, and I will not get into politics.
Sure.
I've had a lot of people, and I don't let people know where I stand because it's no one's business. Mm-hmm. But I've had so many people call me this huge Trump supporter because I'll debate with someone who is a liberal, because I'm like, well, I think the reason why they see it is because of this, right? So you're debating it because you can stop and take yourself out of your reality and look at other ways that other people look at things. And pretty much that's what you're explaining he does.
Yes.
He takes his ideas out of it. And that's why a lot of people say I'm negative. Hey, sometimes you're a realist and you can take your opinion out and just look at it. Sometimes you can't. But everything that you're saying, it sounds like this guy does research and works to, 517,000 subscribers, I think. I mean, he's doing something right.
Sure, fair enough. I didn't even think about that. But yes, what is his subscriber thing? It's got to be ridiculous. Did you see it already?
It was like
this video alone has had 420,000 views.
Yeah.
Which, like, really, seriously, Lawrence, like, wrap your head around that notion of like, there's 420,000. Well, maybe not individuals, but people who want to look at this stuff and are curious about this stuff. And I don't know, that absolutely fascinates me to think that, like, yeah.
To just kind of, I just did the buzzer review. I got buzzer in. I did the buzzer review. I dropped it at. Classified buzzer.
Sorry. I thought you were talking about some YouTube metrics thing. Gotcha. G.I. Joe.
No.
Gotcha.
Sorry. Yeah. So I just did it. No, I don't think anyone's done a review on it. Mm-hmm. I did it. It uploaded and was ready to go before I went on with Allison. So I just put it out to go. It's about to hit 2,000 views since like 2 o'clock. I've never had a video do that well. Like,
yeah.
And just like looking at that, like how many people are actually watching it. Then you look at something like this and you see just how many eyeballs get put on it. And again, if it does anything where it educates someone, whether it be something maybe I don't like pop punk, it doesn't matter. You're educating someone to let them make an educated decision on what it is.
100%. And I think at the end of the day, like, this is one channel. Like, so then it becomes a conversation, right? Then somebody else like, oh, no, actually, you're missing this. Or what about this? And I love that stuff, man. Maybe it's the teacher in me. Maybe it's the, I don't know. I think punk rock actually sort of trained me in that way. Here, I'll do this real quick. If you take a look at his background, one of my favorite things in his background are all these old flyers, a lot of which is like, dude, I was at that show. So I'm actually really curious where he's from. Like this one right here. These are, I don't know if you can see, there's an Integrity, Black Spot, Pale Fire, Gehenna, Willhaven. Like we played with Pale Fire. Like one of my, was I in high school still? Yeah, high school bands played with that band, Pale Fire. There were a Black Spot I saw a lot. Into another. I was at this show. I think this was at the Ice House in Orange County. So it was like, that's kind of what got me. It was like, oh, what's going on? Like, I remember these. I had these flyers on my wall. I still have a lot of them in a box. And so punk rock, I think, trained me to because this is before the internet, man. Like people would say,
Yeah.
"Nah, that band sucks. No, that
You
sound
open up your
sucks."
cassette. You open up your cassette and you see
Yeah.
who they thanked. And you're
Yeah.
like, all right, Pennywise thanked this band. I got to buy it. I got to buy it.
Right. But it was like that. I think that was the training where it was like, it was a conversation. Sure, people could be snarky about it. People could be sort of, standoffish about it. But at the end of the day, it was like, nah, that band sucks. And then you kind of go out and figure, does it suck? Let me check it out. Oh, you guys like that too? And so there was a little bit of that training, I think, that you're kind of were alluding to a little bit. It's like, man, I'll talk about a lot of things. Like and this guy's educating me. And as I said, sort of, I look at everything as sort of like the beginning of a conversation, and I still kind of bring that to the toy thing, I think. But anyway,
No, is he a musician?
that I don't know. That I don't know.
I will say this: being around a lot of musicians here,
Uh-huh.
when you talk to a musician and how they hear bands,
Yeah.
is way different than someone like me who's never played an instrument, has no ability to, can't sing or nothing. I like what I like. I like what comes through my ears. But a musician, and I actually was talking to someone, and I said, I equate it to skateboarding. Someone may look at a trick and see it that it's the hardest trick in the world. And I look at it, and I don't care how hard it is. I see how sketchy it looks, how they barely land it, how their arm, and I'm like, that is ugly. I don't care how hard it was ugly. I can appreciate the tech to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that musicians like things way different than guys like me.
I will say that, to bring it back to the toy thing real quick, that's probably the same for like the designer of a, or I'm sure Ford Horseman, like,
yes,
probably look at toys very differently than you or I do, and I think, anyway, like, I think as I get older, man, like, I've just come to appreciate so much and kind of like want to learn a lot. And so like now I find myself talking about toys, which is something that like was formative. I was a kid, but now I'm looking at it in a very different way, and I'm like learning about it. And now I'm having this opportunity to talk to you about punk, which was like, I will tell you, even though both things were fun, toys were fun.
Yeah.
Being involved in seeing music and playing in bands and doing zines, that was fun. But I also took it very seriously, if that makes sense, right? Like
it does.
Yeah. So, and I think ultimately that makes us nerds, like that.
Oh,
right.
I've said before.
Uh-huh.
Listen, I love the whole toy thing and everything, but other than my kids, if I had one thing, it would be skateboarding. It's brought me misery. There's no doubt about it, but it's brought me more joy than anything in this world has ever, other than my kids. And yeah, it's brought misery, but you land something that you're trying, or jump in a big gap that you land that no one else is even trying. It brings something out of you there, and I can't explain it. And I would assume a musician is probably the same way when they, when they're on stage and how they feel about things.
I was a bad skater, but I did it because that was a thing, right? And so, but I will tell you that yes, I think I think ultimately it comes down to the physical nature of it. That's the difference with toys, unless I guess
Yes.
but your body's into it, and you're like, I want to figure this out. I want to make sense. Same with music. If you're actually, when you're playing, there's something very visceral about it that, I don't know. I see the two things in a very similar way, where it's like, you're right. If you're not a quote unquote practitioner, it's a different conversation. Again, not to say if you're not a musician, like, but yeah, but it's just a sort of different level. Man, we are going all over the place. But real quick, since you were kind of like, let me give you a sense of, is it here? Is it here? Let's see. That's me. That's punk rock me circa 90, 7, I think. So this is like not even, this is later. This is like college in Santa Barbara, Glida, where like bands from Evolution Records, Heart Attack Zine was out of there. And then this was me later. This is in the 2000s with sort of my non-punk mathy thing band that had a life of its own. So as a musician, I will tell you, and from someone who's totally faked his way around skating, I see the connections all the time. And I know a lot of like skater musician friends who are actually good skaters. Same thing, man. Yeah. Anyways, I digress. This was a little later. This was the last show of that band in 2010, I think.
Do you know?
Anyway.
Do you know who the Suicide Machines are?
Yeah.
So I'm friends with Jay, the singer.
Uh-huh.
And
right on.
I remember, like, I never hung out with him till later on, till literally the past few years.
Uh-huh.
I knew the Suicide Machines. I was never really into them. And I didn't know that he skated. And I didn't know he really, really skated. And in the past few years, like this year, we really didn't skate that much. It's possible we might, but it's possible we might not. Hey, I knew that this could happen. But like I started skating with Jay all the time. Like, I mean, I'd see him at shows, you know, like, but to me, it was like, I'm calling him up. Hey, dude, we're going to go hit here. All right, man, I'll be there in a short bit, or I can't make it today or whatever. But my buddy Wedge, who also played in other bands, he's like, dude, he's really into it. He's like, we'd go on tour together. Like his band would go up opening up for him. And he's like, he would be the only one bringing his board. And he'd be like, dude, we're in New York. I'm going to the Brooklyn Bakes, man. And he'd take off. Or in California, like he'd be gone because he knew everything, or knew where everything was, where they were playing. And Wedge would be like, I wouldn't even bring my board. I'd be like so disappointed, like, man, I should have done something. So.
Yeah, that was always the deal. Like, depending on the band I was with at the time, there were like, you know, always like folks who bring their boards and then just go skate. Real quick, I want to address, hey, Eric, what's up? I don't know when you were in sort of Santa Barbara, if you've been there for a while. I went to school there from 94 to 98. And so, like, here's Adam. Can you really be a punk in Santa Barbara? You can, absolutely. And I live in Goleta. And there's a huge scene, right? And so, actually, Eric, you might appreciate some of these flyers. Like, I was looking at this, just digging for, like, you know, you want to talk, like, early days of what eventually became sort of emo and screamo. There's, like, Manumission, which is out of Goleta. I think I saw some other ones, like Not for the Lack of Trying. I think I saw one in here, and Downcast. Anyways, all that said, Adam, yes, and Adam, we will talk about toys. I swear.
I love Adam just like
that's
poking the bear, poking the bear, poking the bear.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I will just say, Goleta. For heart, yes, punk rock, baby. Downcast, Heart Attack Zine, Ebullition Records represent, and it all ties to toys because, you know, Adam and I have joked around a lot about like the whole indie toy scene. Like literally, it's like this sort of similar kind of underground movement. I feel like that's become bigger. I feel like we're on the cusp of like, we might get a little gross. Because I feel like we're about to get to that era of like, what smells like Teen Spirit, but like, but no, it's fine. But I just feel like I will tell you, I love that record and I like that band a lot. But my point is that era where, quote unquote, when punk blew up in a different way, right? But I think the same thing might be happening with the quote unquote indie toy movement, and the bubble. I feel like. Is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you know what happens when bubbles and balloons get over inflated is they pop.
Where's Adam from in Canada?
Kelowna. Am I saying that right? Yeah, Kelowna, up in West Coast, northeast of Vancouver. I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Vancouver. So Red Dragons, right? Red Dragons.
I don't know what that is.
Red Dragons is what a lot of the foreign skateboarders they created. Red Dragon. I'm trying to think. Colin McKay, and there's a few other ones, and not all of them are skateboarders, but Red Dragons is the big things. See, Nolan knows Red Dragons.
Yes, Nolan. And I will say, Adam said someone needs to say it. I think getting cool is actually cool, and I agree. And so, like, I've never been the person who's like, oh, it's not cool that it's getting bigger. Especially, I'll just
Oh my
we'll
God.
get there. We'll get there.
You
We'll
gotta
get there.
take me out.
We
I
can
gotta
go
say
forever.
this.
Yeah.
I'm a skateboarder. All right.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I've listened to so many people go, "Ugh, you know what? Skateboarding in the Olympics, it's just, it shouldn't be there. Who cares? How does it affect how you ride your skateboard? All right. Rancid getting popular and being played on the radio did not change the music they were making or punk for anyone else. And I'm like, hey, you know what? If I turn on NBC and I see skateboarding in the Olympics, guess what? I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna watch it. And not to mention, I watched Yuto from Japan win the Olympics, win the gold medal, and he's probably the best skateboarder out there. And that's saying a lot for the guys that are out there. Anyway.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. And I swear we'll get to toys, but before we do, let me share one other web channel. Pop Culture Graveyard, not necessarily punk specific, but there's a lot of sort of documentary type podcasts in here that are around punk bands. I love this. In fact, my good friend just sent me something around the Devo video, but Pop Culture Graveyard, cool podcast. I'm just going to move through real quick and you can kind of see some of the things that get covered. And I'm going to highlight a couple of quick videos that are also in the links in that that handy dandy URL that's like scrolling around the bottom, as well as anyway, so Fugazi, and this will probably give you a sense of what kind of punk I am, maybe, because we come in all sort of shapes and colors. And you've said a lot. I've heard you say like it's no one's business, my politics and that kind of thing. This will probably just tell you. You'll know based on like what I listen to and like, but it's fine. Like Fugazi, out of DC, former Minor Threat, Embrace, you name it, right? Rites of Spring. Love that band. Love this video. Definitely a great sort of deep dive. Did you listen at all to Fugazi at all? Your speech?
I am probably the only straight edge person that does not like Minor Threat or Fugazi.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, that's right. There's a straight edge connection too. Yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. There's also, I know a lot of folks actually who sort of like, that's not my thing.
But it's fun. But when you look at straight edge, one of the people that was part of Minor Threat, who is now the guitarist for Bad Religion, has given up being straight edge, and he's like, hey, listen, we were straight edge because we were just a bunch of middle class kids playing music that didn't drink and stuff. We didn't plan on making a movement or anything, but now you probably catch me at the bar with a couple beers. Now, McKay, he's different. He's done it his whole life, just like I have. But I've just never been a fan of their music.
I've had a conversation with two different opportunities, and one when I was younger, and one was in the mid 2000s. But one when I was younger in the late 90s. Sort of was talking to him about that, and he was like, man, yeah, we were like, we didn't drink, we didn't smoke, we didn't do that, but like we had no idea that kids were gonna like turn this into a huge thing. And like in many ways, he was like not trying to distance himself, even really early on. He's like, yeah, and then I wrote a lyric, and then it kind of took off. But he was like, but that's what things do. Like he was very conscious, like that's how punk works. I don't own it. Like I'll create something, and people turn it into something else. Kind of like what we were alluding to earlier, right? That like. Yeah, things evolve and things transform, and anyway.
But like Rancid has a song "Journey to the End," and there's a verse in it where they specifically talk about when they were in Operation Ivy, not realizing what they were doing. They were just kids in a van traveling the U.S. Had no idea. And as much as I hate that they won't ever do a reunion tour, I have so much respect for it.
Ooh, hold that thought. But they won't do a reunion trip, but I'll hold that thought. I don't know if you saw what happened last night, but I'll tell you in a second. Okay.
No, I didn't.
Real quick.
Wait a minute. Now I'm excited.
We're going to get there. So,
I don't care about toys.
Wait, I don't want to.
Tomorrow to listen to toys. We want to talk about Operation Ivy.
I don't want to ruin this for you. I don't want you to think there's a tour. There is no tour, but anyway. And again, you can probably sense my politics based on the music I listen to. But anyways, The Clash, a deep dive into Sandinista, So Bikini Kill, I'm just going through them because the links are there. Fire Hose, who I loved. I'm a bass player, and so like Fire Hose between Mike Watt and Flea, like they reminded people that like no, the bass, like you can do a lot on a bass. Gang of Four. Sorry, I don't know if you're familiar with these bands at all, but if you are,
I know them, but I don't listen to them.
that's fair. And like the
Yeah.
the politics part, it's just like, oh. But anyway, DEVO. I've named them. Oh, actually, I've named them quite a bit on this channel, and people are like, "But that's not punk." But like, dude, the roots are there, and there's this dope video. Why Devo is the greatest punk band of all time. I don't necessarily know that I agree with the hypothesis, but the thrust of the hypothesis is there, and I'll leave that as a tease. It's better than Newfound Glory. Can we at least unite on that? No. All right, I'll move on. They do a whole thing on new wave, and I don't know if Allison's here, but one of my favorite bands was the Go-Go's, believe it or not. And I don't know, you're probably going like me. You're a West Coast kid, and totally am.
No, you know, I have a lot of respect for. I have a lot of respect for the younger, or I'm sorry, for the early '70s, which was shaping what punk became.
Yep.
I don't listen to the Go-Go's and think that punk or Devo, but I understand why when people say that it's like punk, like you can go, all right, I understand it, because there wasn't a form of music called punk at that time.
Yep.
And it's better than what the Sex Pistols and people gave.
So again, like I've danced around it, but for me, at least when I was getting into punk, it really was about the ethos. The like, there should be no rules. Like the notion of like, let's experiment, and the artsiness of me very comes up like those new wave bands that have been like early punk. It's very much about like a merging of art and politic and like anti-corporate stuff and just living your own life, figuring it out. And of course, it was a very different time. So that's sort of what I tend to hold on to with this notion of punk, and it's really driven me. And you and I were talking about this a little bit off stage, or before the stream, but you and I have like essentially created these TV channels, right? With like our own TV show. And like, sure, back in the, the equivalent would be like, oh, I guess I need to read my toy news from a respectable source, right? With like major funding. They're interviewing these people. Nah, we're just like fans who are into this stuff. And like, I want to tell you what I'm into. I want to tell you what I'm looking at. And to me, like, that's punk rock. That's what I used to do with bands. It wasn't like, oh, I need to look at Spin Records or Spin Magazine or what was the other one? Rolling Stone. No offense to them. Like I enjoyed reading those magazines, but it was like, yeah, man, I wanted to look at like what people were putting together on a photocopy machine. And like part of me, I've shared this before, like I wouldn't be doing Brick Something as a channel. The notion of like, can I create my own YouTube channel? If that like as a 14-year-old kid who was like going to shows didn't do this like zine and like
so awesome.
Try and like scan like photocopies and and I ended up doing that for like a good like 10 years, but now I can go back and like show my kids, and it's a document. And that's how I've always said from the beginning of my channel. It's like I go back and I'm like, oh, I had that toy. Oh yeah, I was into that toy. I remember when that wave came out. I don't know. I see the connections. I hope you all in the chat and anyone watching a replay aren't like, talk about toys, but
you know what? I want to say something. People may tune in to hear about the toys, but I really do believe, and I think a lot of this has to do with why my shows become popular and the stuff that I do is because, and I read all my comments, right? They hear the passion, and you don't have to be into something. Yeah. Again, it's not something negative, right? We're talking positive stuff. Yeah. Like they hear the passion, and they're just like, man, this is just two people talking passionate about something. Maybe it's not toys, but they are relating it to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
I believe so. No Use for a Name. I think such an overrated band. I'm sorry.
You're gonna be in the chat comments. Okay.
I really love Don't Miss the Train and some of their other stuff, but I think they're such an overrated band.
real quick, I just want to point out that this is no different from like, oh, a nihilist by Diamond Select. You know what I mean? Like we have these conversations, right? Someone brings up something and we express our like disdain or our like for a thing, and that's the conversation. That's kind of the fun.
What's funny about No Use for a Name is no one thought they were as great until the singer passed away. Once the singer passed away, everyone was all like, "Oh my God, Tony Sly this and Tony Sly that," and it was like,
I mean, I haven't interviewed everyone, but I understand the sentiment. Sure.
Yeah.
Real quick, yeah. Nolan, I remember this over a meal ago. Said Tommy the Cat is real black clear. Whatever format I'm in. Sorry. Yes, Primus. I'm into them again as a bass player. Yeah. So a lot of folks. I'm just gonna throw them up there. We are not ignoring you. I love you for being here. This is like the punk show, right? People group in, and then the band's like way too loud, and we're missing the good conversation that's happening in the hall, if you will. But thank you all for coming through. And the thing is, like, I know, and you know, like a lot of these folks who are in here, I know there are cultural touchstones. As you said, there are a lot of punks into toys, right? Absolutely.
The fact that Nolan says No Use for a Name. He didn't pull out Rancid. He didn't pull out Bad Religion, right? He didn't pull out Misfits. No Use for a Name. If you're not a punk, you don't know who No Use for a Name is.
So, look at you with your British rock and roll magazine. No, absolutely. I love the enemy. Okay. So here's the deal. We'll move on. Speaking of Spin Records and major press, it's so funny. Remember Spin was the biggest thing? I don't know. Like, do they even have magazines anymore? I haven't paid attention. But they have a website. And on that website,
I don't know. The only skate magazine I know that's left is Thrasher.
Mm-hmm.
The only mass-produced one is Thrasher.
Scott, the specials, was that ever a thing for you?
I was never a big ska fan. I started to appreciate ska a little more as I got older. I really like the Voodoo Glow Skulls. They just make me laugh.
Yeah.
But when I think of ska, I think of the song "Ska Sucks" from, was it Guttermouth?
Jeez.
No, Guttermouth didn't do "Ska Sucks." Guttermouth did another one where they ripped down ska. "Ska Sucks" Propagandi.
Propagandi. I love Propagandi. Which is time. Do you see what I'm highlighting though, Lawrence? I don't know if you see this. Can you see it?
Oh yeah.
So the special, Terry Hall passed away in December, and they did sort of a tribute show or a salute show last night in LA. Small thing, it was in a private residence. Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine, who was fronted by Zach De La Rocha, who was in several punk bands, including No Spiritual Surrender.
Yes.
So they were one of the first bands that I saw, Lawrence, as a 14-year-old kid in Long Beach.
What the hell's the name of the band?
No, it was. Oh my God.
It's gonna drive me nuts because I'm Revelation. That was supposed to be I'm sorry. Rage Against the Machine was supposed to be a song.
It was supposed to be a song. So you want to tie it back to where I went to college?
I did not like Rage Against the Machine.
I did in Goleta and Santa Barbara. There was a zine by Ebullition Records, or by the owner of Ebullition Records, Kent McClard, called No Answers. And in that, he had this whole diatribe. And then one of the things is like Rage Against the Machine. And Zach from this band whose name has still escaped me. Not Instead. What am I saying? But anyway.
No, Instead's completely different.
Yeah, I know. Feel their pain. But so anyways, he wrote and was like, hey man, I want to do the song. And can I use that for a song title? And then eventually it was like, hey, I want to turn it into a band. And anyway, Tom Morello, no doubt, essentially everyone besides Gwen. And those, they just named those, but then you see folks from Rancid, from Fishbone, one of my favorite bands in the world, L7 and Operation Ivy.
Inside Out. Inside Out.
Thank you. That's why I thought Instead. Yes, and I saw Inside Out when they did the reunion tour too for the Western Shoshone benefits in the 90s, early 90s, 96, I think. Yeah, man, it was a mouthpiece and there were so many bands that weird night. Anyway, so they did this show and they performed. So Tim Armstrong, Jesse Michaels, they performed Take Warning. It was just one song. You can see it on the 23 Punk Instagram. You can see some of it. Sounds good. You know, I mean, you got to work really hard to make up, no offense, but Operation Ivy not sound good. I think you got to, you know what you
How
do.
How bad of a musician do you need to be?
No, I think you have to play too good to make Operation Ivy sound.
That's what I mean. Like, you have to be that bad.
Yeah. Like, you have to make it all. Anyways, it was, I was stoked when I saw this morning. I was like, oh my God, they played together again. There's no tour or anything, but you know, it's a thing. And I know
they've done other music together.
What's that? They have done other.
They've done other music together, but
yep.
And I've seen where Rancid has played Op Ivy songs, but it's Lars that always sings it. Tim never sings anything.
No.
But you're like, that's your line though. That was your verse. Like, why can't you sing it?
Enough.
A matter of fact, I've seen Rancid a bunch of times here.
Uh-huh.
You know what song Rancid has never played when they played here?
What's that?
Detroit. They've never played Detroit.
That's
like, how do you not play the song?
Yeah, that would be the song too. I actually sent this right away to Cobb because Cobb and I forget whose chat we were in, but we were talking Operation Ivy randomly. Anyway,
they're so good. That album, Energy was so good. I mean, I don't care what anyone says.
I memorized every single lyric on that, and then the extended tracks eventually that came out. So,
and it was in multiple skate videos. So that's how we found out about it.
Oh,
it was in the Planet Earth video, and I want to say the Life video.
And I haven't heard that.
But again, those were H Street. Well, it was in H Street also. H Street videos. They were all owned by the same company, and that's what they did. I was actually listening to a thing. Sorry, guys, and they were talking to one of the videographers of some of the old skate videos, and he's like, "Yeah, like now you have to get licensed to do all these to use music." And you had to back then. It wasn't as hard. He's like, we would just call Epitaph up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, use our music," because they understood like no one is buying a skate video for the music.
Yeah.
But that's going to be with them forever. That's how we found out about Pennywise. We knew Bad Religion was, but Pennywise was all in the Plan B video.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Firehouse?
And it wasn't even just.
But there was just so much music.
Firehouse, Fire Hose, probably. Firehouse was like glam metal. Yeah, but yes, I remember. And
what was the other one? One of my favorite bands from Chicago. Oh my God, I cannot believe. Sorry, guys. We were supposed to talk.
This is the other thing is like this is old guys on Toys and Punk. So the memory fails us.
I told you I could do this all day. Like, you want to talk skateboarding music? I could do this all day. Then Nolan says Plan B is how he found Pennywise also. There was an A1 Meets video. It was they were a wheel company. They just played the album Ribbed from N.E.W.S, just from end to end. They didn't try and add anything in or anything.
I love that. I love when bands will go back and do that. Just like, okay, we're going to play this record. We know you want to hear it. Boom.
Yeah.
So good.
You know, Pennywise did that not too long ago, where they played their third album, which they also played a lot of other music too, which is great because, like, I want to hear all these songs, but there are songs that they will never play. Which I love the fact that a lot of these bands are like, we're going to play our first album, or second album, or third album. And you're like, good, because there's some songs you've never played before.
Yep.
So, in Operation Ivy, they should just play all of them.
Dude,
But this is
yeah.
awesome. Now I got to go back and listen to it.
Heads up. And of course, and it sounds like you're not a big Rage Against the Machine fan. I love Tom Morello for a million and one reasons. I love his podcast too. It's actually it's kind of like you and me. We're just talking about punk. It's cool to hear him like talk with like Steve Vai and like whoever else, and they're just like hanging out talking about music, like they're just kids in a garage. But anyway, he performed as well.
I don't have a lot of respect for them, and people will probably roll their eyes at this. Sick of It All tells a story that they were supposed to go on tour with them, and like a few weeks before they were supposed to go, the singer, what's his face? Zach. I think he came to him and he said, "Listen, we can't bring you guys on tour." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, he said, "Not me, but the other band members and other people are worried that you're going to bring a Nazi crowd." Sorry. A skinhead racist crowd. And they're like, "Dude, you're kidding me, right?" Like, they're one of the most, they're so against that crap. Yeah. But again, because of them being hardcore.
Them, but yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they cowered, and he was like, and he's like, "You know what? Screw them." But I think that band's done perfectly fine without their help. But to me, that's like me not bringing you somewhere because other people are worried that they're not going to like you. You know what? Oh, wow.
I hear that. This is what we said earlier. And if you'd like to hear us talk about this, come hang out on the Punk with Toys on December 7th.
Yes, we've got 51 minutes. Is there any 20s?
We're going to get the toys in a second. And here's my weird segue. This actually isn't toys. So Indecision Records, man. I don't know if you're familiar. Bands like Outspoken, Unbroken. This was the Orange County hardcore stuff. This zine, again, was one of those that sort of changed my life. Indecision magazine, done by this dude named Dave Mandel, who eventually who also did a record label and like a lot of the bands in Orange County, particularly the straight edge bands, but also just hardcore in general bands, came out of there and continued. I think you and Adam both mentioned Revelation Records. This was like the West Coast rep, if you will. Or like the West Coast victory, if you will. And so like this was the stuff that I was seeing all the time because they were doing the shows, paying $5. And they just recently in July did a 30th anniversary. And I'm like, damn, I'm old. But they did a 30th anniversary down there with all these bands. And what's fun is that the reason I even heard about it, because I wasn't paying attention, I was like, oh, wow, they're still around, was I went into the Super 7 store. I know your favorite. Super 7. One of both Brian. I've spoken with Brian in the past when I first moved here to the Bay Area about hardcore and sort of his background and punk stuff. And then Daniel, who works there now, is a Brit from the UK, lives out here.
I've seen him on. Yeah, I watched it.
The episode of. Have you seen his channel or like because they did like the toy store like show?
Yes, that's where I saw him. Yeah, he was talking about a Gnostic front and everyone. So,
but like again, to tie it to toys and hardcore, the thing is, there's a sensibility around this. Like Super 7, again, I know I've heard you speak about them, and I will tell you, like, it's going to seem weird for me to say this, but there's a cultural aspect to what they do that is very much like DIY. When I moved here to the Bay Area in 1998, there was this little store opening, I think later that year, 99, but I was familiar with their magazine. It was like it was a glorified zine about one of the nerdiest things ever, like Japanese sofubi, like vintage toys. And then eventually like Star Wars got worked in there. And then eventually they like got a shop in San Francisco and they started selling toys and then they started making toys. And everything that I just described just reminded me. And that day was like, oh my God, like you see it today in their slogan. It's like, no one was making the toys we wanted or whatever. We grew up on this stuff. We loved it. No one was making the toys. So we started doing it. And to me, that's very much like, that's like the punk rock label. No one wanted to listen to our music. So we put it out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I don't know how that translates to them trying to sell you a $55 figure in 2023.
But yeah, if Pennywise was selling tickets for the same price as Taylor Swift, that's how you equivalent.
Sure. But I will say the cultural aspect. So again, he was telling me about this thing, and I just wanted to share it before I move on, because there is a transition to toys. But one of my favorite bands ever, Unbroken, who had tragically lost a musician back in the day. That this was a kid, really, and I was a kid. This is me at a Unbroken show. I don't know if you can see me on the fly in the buttermilk. That's me. This was in a
there you look Asian.
There
I can see it. Right?
You don't see it? Well, anyway, it was
when you pointed out
public storage unit. It was a public storage unit. You can tell, like, it literally was a roll up.
Yeah, you can see the door in the back.
In Corona, California, and this was Unbroken.
Oh, that must have been great sound.
It was horrible, but I love it. This guy right here, their guitarist, a fellow you're Mexican as well. This dude, like, that was a big deal to me, Lawrence. I don't know, like, where you come from, but for me, I will just say, like, seeing other, like, brown folks or folks of color at these shows mattered to me, and that has sort of affected my toy buying. But I don't know. I'll just leave that there and I'll move on. But here he is now, dude, 30 years later, doing his thing, and I love that. It reminds me of you and me being like, yeah, we played with toys as a kid. 30 years later, Lawrence decided to whip out his flag. I saw that post, right? And he's playing with his, like, G.I. Joe flag or whatever, right?
It's always up.
Yeah.
I watched the movie and I was inspired. But before we move on, I do got to address Cobweb, the unseen, scream out, "This is my therapy." Now, I have a story. Now, I had never heard of the unseen.
Go for it.
And I was in a Facebook group with someone, and he found out I like punk, and we're going back and forth. And he's like, I'm like best friends with either the guitarist or the singer. I don't remember what it was. And he's like, he was like the best man or one of the guys that stood up at his wedding, or vice versa. I don't remember. And like, he told me who they were, and I started listening to them, and I'm like, this band is really good. So it's like, it was just weird. I have no idea who the guy is. I think I was friends with him on Facebook for a bit, but I have no idea who he is. It was just awesome because I found a really good band.
That's great.
Speaking of agnostic front, because you already brought up Instead, have you ever heard the Alligators?
No.
So the Alligators is Instead with Roger singing, and imagine this is exactly how it sounds.
It's all of them with.
Yeah, I believe it's just all of them, and he's the singer.
Okay.
So it is Instead music with agnostic front voice. It is good in a really weird way, because Instead agnostic front couldn't be any more different hardcore styles, but it works. And Roger has a very, very distinct voice.
That's rad. I don't know if you remember the Bonds of Friendship cover, but I recreated that with my kids. Anyways.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So this is Daniel. I was saying he actually ended up, he performed with members of Unbroken at that thing. And so now he's selling toys at Super 7. Again, man, there's a lot of, like, toy people involved in, or there are a lot of punk folks that grew up with this stuff that are in it. And I think there's a reason. I think there is a little bit of that ethos. So anyway, that was go for it.
And that's what I always say about Super 7. He's a punk rocker. He's a skateboarder. I want to like him.
Yeah, I know.
Don't.
I get you. But
I'm going to be my best behavior because this is your channel, not mine.
No, man, all good. Lots of, that was punk. Punk was pretty damn democratic, man. We were yelling at each other, That said, there's the style, right? There is the vibe, the aesthetic of what people consider punk. And that is totally translated into spider punk. I think the creation of the character, and then and not even just style. I don't mean that in a pejorative, but just like the way he was in the his character was in the movie in particular, and in the comics,
Yeah.
they've sort of tried to tease out. Was pretty damn cool. I appreciated it. I appreciated the aesthetic of trying to merge in like this very 21st century look at like what the cut and paste, style was. And now, if you're so punk and have $285, you too can get a 12-inch version of him. Punks grow up and they get jobs and they save. So yes, no, I think it's a damn good character, and I think I was really happy to see this version of Spider-Man get some love in that movie and the reaction. And so now we're getting it here in Hot Toys. Now we're switching toy gear. Curious, do you do any 1/6 stuff at all, or are you mainly 112 and?
Basically 112, and I still have a bunch of the 118 stuff, obviously my G.I. Joe stuff, and I did back a bunch of Kickstarters, but and the only 1/6 stuff I have are these 3-0 Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. But if I had the money, I would get the rest of them, man. Yeah, Adam, suck it.
And suck it in Tagalog actually means pain. But
and not to mention, I showed this, right? This is a toy. I mean, it's highly unarticulated, but it is a toy. I'm sure it's music, Gorilla Biscuits, but I did show that earlier, so you can't say we didn't talk toys.
Yeah, I think. I missed it. Did you just throw up a Gorilla Biscuits toy from Super 7? No.
Yeah.
Oh, you did. Sorry, that's They have like 30 different colors of them, and I also have. I had to get this one. I love that they did that, man.
I had to get. Skankman.
Yeah.
Because
Circle Jerks.
Circle Jerks are by far one of the top 5 punk bands of all time.
Kayla, don't know if you're here, but we did just say Circle Jerks. But anyways, yes, that price tag is huge. And yeah, no, I get it, man. The sculpts on these things are amazing. I don't do 1/6 at all. I barely have space for 112. I mean, I definitely, like, I paid for some expensive figures in my day and still do, but like for one figure, it's up there. But it's what you get. Anyway, I don't need to sell you. It's just cool. It's tied to the theme. I made it work. This too, man, the Prowler was also a newer figure that they announced. Just like, I don't know, man. I'm really intrigued by people who are the movie itself. I will tell you the innovation on that thing. Like, you know what American cartoons generally look like, and I love that we are pushing and redefining that with the Ninja Turtles cartoon more recently. And even, I feel like more and more animation, it just doesn't get the love that it deserves here in the States compared to, say, like in Japan. But to see it then translated to figures like Hot Toys and it could have just given us like the statue. But I love that they're working in like the dynamic look of the animation into this stuff. Obviously same goes for this stuff. I didn't say it earlier, but all of that stuff is just really cool to like really give us the sort of essence of these characters from the film. But
they do. Hot Toys does a wonderful job of creating their stuff, and it really goes back to the whole idea of, sure, you can buy a pair of shoes for $40, but sometimes you're spending $150 on a pair of shoes because they are built to do specific things, and
sure.
You do pay for quality. So
like a skate shoe or a good work boot.
What?
Like a skate shoe or a good work boot.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, my son and I were just talking. My son and we were just talking how he likes skate shoes, even though he has a skateboard. And he started talking to me about like different shoes and how they're made. And I was like, listen, certain shoes are just made like a skate shoe. You would have, I'm not saying you, but people would have no idea. Like I can break down and be like, yeah, you see that toe cap, this, and that. The shoes that I wear, N.E.W.S, they have Michelin rubbers so they last longer. But am I going to run out on a basketball court or tennis court? No. Am I going to go running? Am I going to go for a jog in them? Hell no. You might as well run barefoot. But it's the same thing with when you get quality like this. That's why when people try and compare
it's true.
a Marvel Legend or a G.I. Joe Classified to a Mezco, I'm like, listen, one's $100, one's $25.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
Yep.
that there shouldn't be, that they shouldn't always try and up their QC, but you can't compare the two.
No.
Well, at least you shouldn't be
really
able to.
Can't. You shouldn't be able to. That's right. You shouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but you should be. And
if
I will
you
say,
are, if you are, Hasbro's either doing a super good job, or Mezco or whoever is doing an awful job, because they should not be. There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
And you've heard me talk about Mythic Legions before. Like, I understand you lose articulation, but you're paying that $55 or whatever because the paint is magnificent. The sculpt is awesome. You got wonderful soft goods.
Yep.
And I don't hear people complain about QC issues. And that's what you're paying for with your Mythic Legions.
Yeah, and you're supporting a small, like a really small company compared to. Anyway, that said, and we'll continue this on December 7th, but like, it wasn't just a punk, dude. I was like all about hip hop, and I looked at them, I took them both seriously, and in my brain, just like I'm mapping or I'm blending the toy collecting world with punk rock, I used to do the same thing with hip hop and punk rock. And, again, the Clash did it too. Fugazi did it, particularly with reggae. So like, anyway, I just say that I especially loved this property because of its sort of like really embracing those roots, and the way they've translated it in these toys in particular are fantastic. Way out of my range, but I know how to like window shop and appreciate these things, and that's why I'm sharing it here.
Do you mean out of your price range? Because I'm looking at that wall behind you, and I know how much Legos cost.
Oh, sure. No single one of these cost what was it? $285.
No single one.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is one thing. I don't know. But you're right. Like, if I shifted my habits, I could get less toys and pay for more expensive ones. 100%.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Also, on a side note, the people that like to buy toys for investment later down the road.
Yes.
Buy Legos. They never go down in price and often go up.
Yes.
I hate to say that. They never go down in price.
Yep.
But they may, and when I say may, there's a good chance they're going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why people buy action figures. Yeah. I don't know why people buy action figures. I'm like, why are you not buying Legos? Because in 5 years, that Millennium Falcon that was $500 is worth $1,000.
I'll tell you, I often say that Four Horsemen is like the Lego of action figures, but we can continue that later.
Yeah,
Mezco, I will tell you, Mezco embraced the punk rock thing, right? At least, again, the aesthetic, and I think I would argue a little bit of the sentiment in terms of just like no rules, like I'm going to make my own IP, like we're just going to do this thing, and I get it. Well, yeah, I'll just say that, and I appreciate this. I actually like Mezco's original IP. Same with Super 7. I like their original IP way more than I do anything that they do that's licensed.
It's cool.
Because there's a freedom there and there's a play there. And I love that. I'm just bringing this up because it is sort of tied to our theme. I don't have them. Again, I'll say that. But look at the animation, the art. Like, think of just the level of creativity that goes into this. And when they release this thing, and this is way old, folks. Again, this is the BS news. But when they did it, man, they're like, yeah, we're going to release music. We're going to record music. We're going to do vinyl. You're going to get, like, I don't know. I was just like, man, this took me back so much. They silk screened they silk screened the posters. They gave you T-shirts with like tour dates on the back. I know I'm stretching it a little bit, but I do again appreciate sort of the spirit of these kinds of things.
That shirt is a ripoff of what album cover is that? A ripoff of?
Is an homage. But yeah.
An homage. Okay, yeah. I didn't mean, but it's an homage to
this one.
Who is it? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It could be anything on like.
No, I swear there's one that's
had one like that where they were singing into the mic. This band Function had one that was like that. I don't know who else. Was there an N.E.W.S record too?
I'm not sure. There's one that looks very similar to that.
but the
Star says
sing-along
Elvis.
band.
I don't think Joe. Maybe
No, I don't think
maybe
so. But like now I'm thinking the straight up like sing along, right? Like grab the mic. I remember those days. Yeah. Anyways, I'm just getting old. What is punk rock, in my opinion, is trying to release a playset like this in 2023. Like a full-on cardboard playset, but with the sort of aesthetic sensibility, right? They're just like, no, it's still gonna look pretty damn good. It's still gonna like really like to the attention of detail that we as Mezco do with our toys. And these aren't even these are their 5 points. So these are tiny 3.75, 4-inch figures. But they still manage to like pack in so much detail in these sculpts. And then they're like,
I
let's do a playset.
I like how they do the 5 points of articulation. It's
Mhm.
so smart.
Mm-hmm.
Where rather than making it so they move like the old Star Wars or a reaction figure, you pop off the limbs
Uh-huh.
and you already have set poses for them, but you have multiple ones.
Yeah.
I thought the turtles, even though I'm not a big TMNT person, that little 4 set that they did was awesome because you had so many different, arms and legs and everything to use for their different weapons.
Yep.
So, and I looked through this one because I was putting it through my slides for tomorrow, and I thought the same thing.
Nice. Yeah, man. Like, and it still has the cut play features and the like, the little, I don't know, torture, whatever transformation device, the car on this, like this was just, announced last week or the pre-orders open last week, but just, it's so cool and this brings us back to the notion of like, you have your Hasbro, you have your Mattel. And then there's, definitely there are bigger companies, but nowhere near as big as those. Like you go down to your N.E.W.S and whatever. So like you've got a Mezco who was like, yeah, we do IP, we do license stuff because we love that stuff, and probably gets a lot more attention for the company than the rando Doc Nocturnal or Mosquatch, right? But then they do these things and it captures all of our attention because we're like, oh man, like what is that? That looks like it could have been something cool from our childhood, but like plus, right? Like the 21st century grown-up version. But anyway, I love it. I think it is in theme with the whole punk thing. But what's also in its own way, maybe more like brutal core, is Conan, right? I think
this is more Slayer, Exodus.
Sure. This is getting into the metal. But yeah, they announced their King Conan, and because it's not one of their crazy competitive exclusives, this is actually one that I could go in for. And it's not a $280 figure, but it is $100 figure. And yes, I in fact did go for it.
But there's a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah, there are.
To make two completely different looking characters, the two different capes are just huge.
Yep. That's why, like for me, like I have to do these calculations in my head. One, I've had a Mezco Conan from their original figure head that I was going to use on a different figure, but it's like, okay, now I have that head if I don't necessarily want to go King Conan. But this thing comes with, like you said, like look at the different outfits, right? The chainmail, the two capes, there's a fur cape and a cloth cape, like the soft goods. Look at that. These are all things that I could work into my weird sword and sandals / laser gun light sword shelf collection that I've got going on in 2023.
And he's killing Fiona there.
Just like, oh, poor Fiona. Sorry, man. See, now I'm thinking about instead and feel their pain. It all comes back, man. But yeah, look at these soft goods. And again, if you wanted to, and I know people who do, like you could DIY this stuff. And that brings me a little bit to like what I'm really, really loving about toys in 2023. Aside from these smaller companies doing these cool things, it's like the custom stuff, the handmade craft, truly DIY stuff. I don't know if you're familiar at all with 78 points of articulation. He does these amazing dios. He used to do a show on Saturday nights, a stream with a crew of folks that I really, really loved. Unfortunately, they're no longer doing it. But he's out in Indonesia, and his whole thing was doing these amazing handcrafted, handmade dios. So this is, I want to say it's, I haven't kept track. I want to say it was this is third that he sort of released for sale. And so just to give you a sense, he's really, he's a toy collector. He is a photographer as well. So he really thinks with that in mind. So it's less of a play set, more of a set for photos. And if you look at this thing, it's completely modular, and they're often themed. Like he did a street theme one before. So this is the sort of like the feudal Japan one that you can work into a lot of different sort of things. You get the lights going on, even these little lamps, these paper lamps have these like LEDs that simulate like a glowing flicker. But if you take a look at it, this is actually two different setups that you can extend and essentially create like a small city street.
After that price.
Well, yeah. So, but you could get one Hot Toys Spider-Man, or you could get a but yeah, no, it's expensive. But again, this is handmade goodness, right? This is DIY goodness. He's living out in Indonesia. He does this thing. He's put up some photos and some videos to give you a sense. And part of what I like to do here on my channel in general, but also on the news, is to highlight creators, man, like people who are doing their own thing. Yes, I can talk about Mezco and Super 7 and all of them, and in their own way, they're doing their own things. But this is like a guy just sort of doing it, who's a fan, who's like reaching out to other fans to create things that I think they can work not only to their collection, but I think it's more for the photographer, right? And which has become, which is a play of what do you call it? Like a way of playing with toys that is new. You see here the setup. Yeah.
The photography that people are doing now is absolutely. I mean, and no one can say, "Oh, you're an adult playing with toys." No, I'm a photographer setting stuff up. We know what you're really doing. You can't argue. It's like, oh, you still skateboard? No, I'm getting exercise. We know what we're doing.
Totally.
But that looks amazing.
Yeah, and you can see, I love that how he sells it too, because he knows the setup. He's doing it himself. I don't know if you're a big, this is a Demon Slayer. This is my youngest favorite anime. But again, it's like the idea of building these dios that are flexible for different types of figures is super smart. I appreciate and respect his creativity and his sort of attempt to do his own thing in this sort of game. And I want folks to check it out. Look at that. That's some beautiful stuff. Anyway, check out 78 Points. It was the Lost Cause Collective. They used to do a stream on Saturday nights with Omar, but I think they're kind of on pause. But all right. I think there were some other things that I wanted to show, but time is my enemy. That's the thing, man.
Wait, what is that?
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that I would have loved to talk about. This guy, Toyman Zhao, just is, again, this is 1/6, so look, don't touch. But just doing.
I'm so creeped out.
People are just doing some wild stuff, man. Like, this is the equivalent, I would say, of people putting out like 3 chords and anger, and people who were like into the Rolling Stones going like, what the hell is that? Right? Like, or like, I was just listening to Blue Oyster Cult and you just shocked me with 3 chords and screaming. So I think that's what this is. At least that's how it translates in my brain. You got, Prospector Pete.
I love Stinky Pete, man. That looks awesome.
But that's just a tease, because you know what? We should really wind down. I've already sort of said we're going to talk more, right? And I knew you and I could talk. But just give folks a sense of your schedule, because you definitely do things with regularity, and I respect the ethic. Yeah. So what's your deal?
So, anytime I get a Judge or classified figure, I review it normally that day. Now, I will not put out like 3 or 4 in a row. Like if you follow B's Battleground, he does all his and pushes them out. I'll do like 1 a day, possibly 2 if I have too many. Because I just like to have a flow.
Can I pause you there though? That's a lot of
Yeah.
work, and that's amazing that you can keep that up with regularity.
Again, I am single, so I have the ability to do stuff like that. And I'm not like it's half a joke, but no, it's half a joke, but it is true. Like, you know, as long as my kids are taken care of, I have the ability to do stuff and spend money on as long as everything is taken care of. So I put out, you know, when I get the classified videos, gargoyles. I've been able to do all the gargoyles, and I love it because I swear there's no one else reviewing it. So it works to my favor. But for regularity, it is every Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Monday Night Toy Ramblings. It's just me and the chat. And I go 3+ hours. So I will go past midnight. Almost always have a topic, but we go through the news of everything that I kind of enjoy. I don't talk about TMNT, Ghostbusters, different things like that because it's not my interest. You can go catch, you know, Geek Dad Life and Toy Anxiety. They cover that stuff, but I don't really want to get into things that don't cover too much. Although I do like McFarlane and stuff. We all kind of have a big laugh about that because I don't really collect it, but there's a lot of people that do. So every Monday, 9 p.m. And the chat, you guys are what makes it work because you guys have your own conversations going, you're interacting, and the fact that if you haven't noticed yet, I can kind of get all over the damn place. And then every Thursday,
and I wasn't helping you, just to be clear.
No, listen, I kind of got the idea. You and I have never talked, other than a little bit on a stream. We've never just one-on-one talked, but I can kind of grasp how you can be, and not in a bad way. You want to talk about the stuff. You're passionate, so. And then every Thursday I do a stream. Now we rotate. So every other Thursday we do a Punks on Film where we talk about a movie from the past. It seems to be running pretty long. It's very, very raw, let's just say. Like take pictures of the film and then we just talk about it. Like this Thursday we'll be talking Evil Dead 2. And then on the opposite weeks, so that's with me and Matthew Matson, who's my moderator.
Yep.
But he's my co-host for that. And then the opposite Thursdays, I do Thursday with a Friend, which we talked about earlier on. What that is, it's I pick out someone that's in my community, and we get to know them because my whole thing when I'm on Geek Dad Life, the Full Fours, any of these channels, I'm always looking at, like I said, Ray Paz. Well, I know Travis, Mr. Wonderful, and Allison, but I'm looking at all these people, and I'm like, who are they? You know, let's get to actually know them. You're helping support me. I want to get your name out there. I want people to get to know who you are. And so that goes on at 9. I had to move it up because it had been pushing well past 2 hours.
Yep.
And I'm like, I need to sleep at some time. So every Thursday I'm live. Every Monday I'm live. I can't say live. Sometimes there are pre-recorded ones for Thursday with a Friend, like the last one with Lenny.
Which is really cool, by the way, that you know, as advertised, we're not going to talk as bro necessarily. We're not going to talk about what figures you want to see. I'm gonna get to know this person, and we got to know a little bit about him. That was awesome.
And I want to say this because there's someone that seems to be upset with me because I got an interview with Lenny. You know what? Just shut up. But it wasn't about Hasbro. It was about him. And when I sent over, so when I asked him if he'd be interested, I sent him over the one that I did with PNC, which I thought was a really good one because PNC is a channel member of mine. He collects video games and stuff. And I have played video games, but to hear when we get into that talk, it's interesting to me because you're learning about something different other than just like, hey, what toys do you collect and why do you like this toy? I mean, that's great. We can all hear about that, but then we'll get to that. But when I sent that over to him and he watched a couple other ones, he was like, he goes, yeah, I like it. It's really chill. And yeah, we did end up talking a little bit about Hasbro stuff. Nothing that you didn't already know for the most part. Although we did find out about the Cobra Island roadblock and why he looks the way he does. I don't think he ever discussed that before. But you got to learn that he was in a band for like 7 years. That he worked at a graveyard. How he got into toy design, and I just found it very interesting. It was fun. It's relaxing. You just sit back and, you're not trying to, slam things down. This one here, this was another one that I had to do pre-recorded with the Usual Mike. I think a lot of people know who Usual Mike is. The first question that I asked him was, hey, where'd your name come from? And he's like, man, I wasn't expecting that. And it's pretty interesting to find out how he came up with the name Usual Mike.
It's totally great. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, he was wonderful, and he got up at like 6 a.m. to do it. Actually, he was up before then, but he's like, "This is when it's quiet." He's like, "Yeah, I can give you like," he's like, "Yeah, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours." We talked for 3 hours, and then we talked afterwards too. And obviously, we were talking before, as you know how these things go.
Well, to your point, like Usual Mike was one of those during lockdown that I was like watching, and these were just folks that I was like, it's through a screen, but it was like, oh, I get what he's into, he's looking at this stuff, and then there's people in there chatting, and it's cool to kind of just that's not a Thursday, but that like. It's cool to be able to have a space to be able to like meet these folks in this own way, in this very unique way. So I dig it. And so you got the Mondays, you got the Thursdays, you got the movies, which you mentioned, but I was slow to bring up the visuals. But like I love that you're going through old movies. I don't always get to catch them, but I generally say, oh, I want to see what they had to say about that movie. And I've thrown out there, I don't know if you're familiar, but Suburbia, if you want to look at old punk movies. I don't know if anyway, it's actually filmed in the town where I grew up in, but has a young baby Flea in it. I think he was still playing with fear at the time.
What is the movie that Flea and Anthony are in? And they're driving the big monster truck?
It's Keanu Reeves. It's the surfing gang one with Dirty Dancing guy. Point Break.
No, I know there was it's like a comedy, and they're like chasing. Yeah. Oh my god, I'll have to look it up. It's a really weird movie. I have to look it up, and I just remember they're in this
Point Break because they were part of the game.
No.
Oh, actually, no, Flea wasn't in that. It was just Anthony. So I don't know what this other one was. And then Flea was in Back to the Future 1, 2, 2, and 3. But yeah, I don't know what we're in.
I'll have to look it up. Go through IMDb. I just remember they're hilarious in it.
Guess as the case.
Yeah, I don't know if that's it because that name doesn't.
Oh, the chase. Sorry, he said sorry. The chase. And
maybe because there was a chase, and they're like these two idiots like trying to chase after him. That's all I remember. But now I got to think about it.
Flea was in Big Lebowski. I don't know that. Anthony was. He was one of the nihilists. Anyway, hey, listen, man. I'm really glad that you got to spend a little time over here on the Brick Something channel. I hope that it's silly for me to say like, hey, go follow Pump Toys because most of these folks they know what's up. But hopefully, the punk thing, man. I don't know. I don't necessarily get to talk this much, and obviously I took the opportunity, so I hope that was okay for me to just geek out about the punk rock thing for a little bit. But but yeah,
listen, we're gonna do Thursday with a Friend in December.
Yeah,
if you want to just do a show where we talk about punk, because Thursday with a Friend isn't going to be just punk, it's going to be your whole life. But
oh god,
as you know, I can get into this just like if someone said, hey, you want to come on for 2 hours and talk skateboarding? It's like crack. I mean, you don't need to ask me twice. Like, all right, cool. Let's talk it. You only want 2 hours though, because we're gonna need a part 3, part 4, part 5.
Yeah, but this was fun, and yeah, we could talk about. So this is the tease, December 7th, Thursday night. We'll be talking about that. We'll talk about that club that I played out in Detroit. I think that was the second to last tour. We did that.
You
Yeah,
only
whatever.
play here
We'll talk
once?
music. We'll talk live. No, we played 3 times, but they were like small. Actually, I think the first time around wasn't in Detroit. It might have been in. There was a city nearby. I don't know. Well, we'll talk more in December. We'll talk more December 7th. Yeah, I did play Hamtramck. That's right.
That's where Smalls is, in Hamtramck.
Yeah.
But it's Hamtramck is in the middle of Detroit, so you're still in Detroit.
Got it. Wait, there's like
weird.
A municipality inside the borders of Detroit?
There's 2. There's Hamtramck and God, I can't think of the other one. There's like 2 inside of Detroit.
Wow.
But where I'm at, I live in Mount Clemens. I'm surrounded by Clinton Township for the most part, so it's kind of weird too.
Well, we will definitely talk all that stuff, man. Thank you so much for spending some time. I hope you had some fun.
I had a lot of fun. I love talking this stuff. I don't get to talk enough. And with someone new, and I know there's new people in here that are probably looking at me going, that guy's an idiot, but hey.
No.
People do that on Monday.
Why is Brick not talking about toys? Hey, we are complex human beings, and we are filled with all sorts of stuff. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you again for joining me on Brick Something News. So on Monday, you can see Lawrence for a little over 3 hours. He might step away a little bit to handle the dog, or maybe go pick somebody up and come back. But 3 hours, it counts. I will be back here next week, and also there will be a episode of AWOC Talk with myself and Highly Articulated dropping this week. So just subscribe to the channel and check out the community tab. But anyways, I hope you all have a great week. If you actually do get a true weekend, I hope the week goes well. These are rough times, and I know I'm not going to talk politics, but I will just tell you, this is a really difficult time in the world for all sorts of reasons. And I want to acknowledge that, but I also want to appreciate that we get this little slice of just geeking out about whether it's music or toys, just a space to kind of be able to hang out with folks, right? Make friends.
Can I say something? There is nothing wrong with acknowledging what else is going on. My show was on 9/11, and I stopped at the beginning just to stop and just say, hey, you know what? I know other people have done it, but just, take a moment and think about everyone and how much our world changed. So 100%. It's not about politics, just saying, hey, you know what? A lot of crap going on right now. This is our own slice to get away from it.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And I enjoy it, man. It was great. Better than a $5 show in a public storage, facility.
I don't know about that. I mean, those were the best.
I don't know, man. I'm too old for that these days. But maybe one more time. Maybe I'll get up one more time and jump off stage and get thrown around for something. All right, man. Thank you so much, Lawrence. I will see you all. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you. And essentially, we are out of here. I got no fun way of ending it. So, all right. Have a great week, folks. Thank you so much. Good night.